Here we are on the World Cleanup Conference, day one, and to be honest with you, this is about inspiration. And while as a founder of the World Cleanup movement, I've been humbled to understand I've been inspiration to many people. To my great surprise, I discovered there is a gentleman on our conference who's been my inspiration from my childhood. And I'm really honored to meet Mr. Charles Moore here on our conference. And this is my opportunity. Sorry for the bad style of interviews. I've never done it before. I really wanted to talk to you, sir. And I wanted to ask you questions, if you mind. First, I want you to know that the news you gave at that moment when you discovered what you did, it really has changed many lives, including mine. So my first question is, how did it happen? I mean, what happened on that day when you sailed, and how did it really go?
Well, many people think it was a single day and that there was a sort of aha moment or a kind of, eureka, I found it. But this is not the case. You're talking to a person who has grown up as a kind of a marine mammal that has been existing in the ocean in different forms, swimming, diving, sailing, skiing, you name it. And I was coming back across an area of the ocean I hadn't crossed before, but I couldn't come on deck without seeing some piece of litter floating by. But it wasn't constant. It wasn't, aha, I found a Great Pacific Garbage Patch. It was, here I am in my habitat, the ocean I love, and I'm as far from all that crap around the coast as I could get, and yet I'm finding these pieces of our civilization out here, whereas if I wanted to withdraw from humanity as far as I possibly could, I would go to the middle of the North or South Pacific Gyre, because you'd be as far as land as you can get from anywhere on Earth. So the fact that that is the part that is most contaminated is just one of those horrible twists that shouldn't be. It's evidence of the injustice of the whole thing. So that's what really motivated me, was thinking, this ocean I love in its most pristine, remote part has now become a garbage patch. This is a big motivator.
It must have felt pretty bad at that moment.
Well, as I say, it wasn't a moment. The real moment was 2 years later, when we went back out there with scientific sampling equipment and decided to test the equipment before we actually reached what we thought was the garbage patch. And we drug that net just to see how it worked, and it came up with a whole bunch of plastic in it. That's when I freaked out. That was 1999. And when I saw it, man, I'm not even there yet, and I'm seeing all this stuff. Then I go, oh, this is bigger than I even thought, So, once we realized the extent of it, its enormous extent means that it's very difficult to see from satellite, and it's not really good for remote sensing. You kind of have to be there. In total, I've spent 3 months in a gyre, a high-pressure subtropical gyre. The South Pacific Gyre, which we just did off of Chile, which we found to be very contaminated, as well as the North Pacific Gyre. And those remote areas don't have a spokesperson. I'm trying to be the ambassador to say, look, no one is going to give you any votes from this area. There's no amount of resources that you can take from this area. But this area has intrinsic value. You must value this area. You must not let this happen. Don't you agree?
I think what you did with this simple discovery, as you pointed in a few months' time, what happened is you connected the dots for people between the consumption and pollution globally. Mm-hmm. And this is, I think, the moment where many movements, had like chances to be born, including ours. And,
Right.
and what you did at that moment, you made many people realize, including me, that there is no chance, we can fight it locally, because
that's
this,
right.
this is the only way to clean the whole spaceship. So I'm really thankful for this, what you did. And I'm just wondering that by having this knowledge now for, so many years, how do you manage? Isn't that a heavy on your shoulders?
Well, there are people that don't have hope, and it's for us that do to just use that hope for good. That's all we can hope to do.
Well, you came here, so you kind of think that, well, cleanup might be one way to get rid of it.
Well, you hit upon it earlier in our interview when you said that it was an international problem. That's the beauty of World Cleanup Day. I've done more to unite the scientists of Mexico and the United States than the government has. Individual people working with individuals in different countries are the real uniters in creating this international movement. This is an expansion on something I've been working on for a long time, which is to truly work on problems that don't have borders across borders. And this is a problem that doesn't have borders and has to be solved across borders.
Mr. Moore, thank you for not losing hope in humanity.
Well, the youth of today is acting out of desperation. They don't see a future in business as usual. They see that as suicidal. They're demanding business unusual. And we have to evaluate projects not just by their possibility of success, but are they really breaking the mold? Are they doing something totally unusual? If they're not, they're part of the problem, not part of the solution.
See how funny the world works. You go sail, you find some piece of plastic, you yell about it, I hear about it, start a movement.
Yeah.
Well, simple things like that can affect a lot, and it just doesn't take too many people. So whoever's listening to that, if you think that you might not, be the right guy or in the right position to do something, I mean, here we got a few examples of freaks like me. Yeah,
Well,
what things can be done, and
I certainly don't want you to think that there's a big ego rush about being international versus being local. Local has its own beauty, its own importance. If you're a leader in your local community, you're a hero, just as much as someone that works on the international stage. So there's plenty of opportunities to be a marvelous uniter like the president of Estonia is in your local community. And you have the same value to our movement as you and I do.
so what do you think, honestly? September 15, we're gonna make an effort of an epic scale. Getting 150 countries together and working their butts out to clean as much of the world as possible. What do you think what's going to happen later?
I think it's going to be the largest cleanup the world has ever known on a unified one-day timeline. Of course, we'll have the international dateline, and there will be different days, but it will be on the same day in one way or another. And that unity is essential to any real change in our situation. By building that kind of international unity and demonstrating that can work to a cooperative end, the sky's the limit, because what we need is something way more advanced than picking up trash to solve the world's problems.
So we're going to get it done in a good way.
Oh yeah, well this is the best way. The way that you've organized it here, I've marvelous visit to Estonia, and I've enjoyed it tremendously, and I think the conference is well planned, and they've got great experts here working on the problems. And look, if you're getting a bunch of bucks from Microsoft, you must be doing something right,
Well, sometimes I think this trash is a pain in the butt. It pesters me, it drives me nuts. I don't like it, I hate it. But on the other times like this, I get to meet people like you. And I feel this is like a blessing. We have it because we've got to share things and we got to know the people we never expected to meet in their lives.
Well, yeah, but you're an international star now. You're the founder. You're the originator. You're the guy that began this movement. That's huge. That's huge. Just, it's like, wow. Do you think that was really cool? The skit they did this morning, where they were looking at the moon and cleaning up the moon. Believe me, that's not far-fetched. They want to put colonies on the moon, and between us and the moon, there's so much space debris that there's danger. They have to track it, and satellites get bumped into it. They're having Thanksgiving dinner one night, and a piece of space trash hit the side of the rocket ship while they're having Thanksgiving dinner on the spaceship. There's trash in orbit around the Earth, a tremendous amount of it. So if cleanup is the answer, get your spacesuit.
Sir, thank you for coming, and thank you for this interview. And honestly, you've been my inspiration, and you're largely the cause why I got to do this thing. So
well, that really,
you can only blame yourself for this.
Me proud of the kind of energy that's been communicated to me that allowed me to do this. I view it as a transmission of, good vibes from everywhere is yielding me. So that's great. I'm glad I can be of service.
Thank you very much.
All right.